Once upon a time, in the heart of a beautiful kingdom, there was a village called Bomba. The village was filled with beautiful houses, green trees, and flowing rivers. In this village lived a girl named Oma. Amoma was very happy. She just got married to Odo, the most handsome man in the village. Everyone came to their big wedding. There was singing, dancing, and lots of food. Smiled all day. The next morning after the wedding, Oma decided to visit her best friend Mupa. She thought, I will see Modupe first, then we can visit others together. Oma went to Maud's house. She was so happy and excited. Without knocking, she walked into Maud's room, but when she opened the door, she saw something that made her very sad and angry. At her new husband was in bed with Modupe. They were not sleeping. They had just finished having sex. Adoli was sweating. Oma's heart broke. She shouted at Modupe. She didn't wait for an explanation. She jumped on the bed and started slapping Mupa. How could you, Mupa? Oma shouted. Modupe was shocked but fought back. She pushed Oma and shouted, stop it, Oma. They pulled each other's hair and slapped each other. The noise was very loud. They screamed and cried, you betrayed me. Oma yelled, you are not my friend. The villagers heard the noise. They came running to Maud's house. When they saw Ama and Modupe fighting, they were surprised. What is happening? They asked. Some villagers tried to separate them. Stop fighting, they said, but Oma and Modupe were too angry. They kept fighting, and it was very hard to pull them apart. Everyone in the village was talking about the fight. Why are they fighting? Some asked what happened, others wondered. Finally, the villagers managed to separate Oma and Modupe. After the villagers managed to separate Oma and Modupe, they stood around trying to understand what had happened. Oma was still crying and Modupe looked very upset. Ad stood nearby looking guilty and ashamed. The villagers started talking among themselves. Modupe betrayed her best friend. One woman said, how could she do such a thing? A man asked, she is wrong. Another woman added, everyone blame Mupi. They thought she was at fault. Oma just got married yesterday, someone said, and now she finds her husband with her best friend. This is terrible. Mupi tried to speak, but the villagers wouldn't listen. They were too busy blaming her. You are not a good friend, Mdupa, they shouted. How could you do this to Oma? Oma, still crying, felt a bit relieved that the villagers were on her side, but she was also very hot. I trusted you, Mop, she said through her tears. You were like a sister to me. Mop finally got a chance to speak. Wait, please listen, she said. There is more to this story, but the villagers were not ready to hear her side. They were too angry and upset. Ad looked down at his feet, not saying anything. He knew he was also to blame, but no one was paying much attention to him. All the anger was directed at Modupe. The village elders arrived. Hearing the commotion, they asked everyone to come down. Let's hear what happened. One elder said, Modupe, tell us your side of the story. The villagers quieted down a bit, curious to hear what Mupi had to say, but many of them still believed she was in the wrong. They whispered to each other, what could she possibly say to justify this? Mupi took a deep breath, ready to explain. She knew it would be hard, but she had to tell her side of the story. The truth was about to come out, and it would change everything. The villagers gathered around, eager to hear M's explanation. The village elders stood in the front, their faces serious. Mupi took a deep breath and began to speak. A long time ago, when Oma and I were just young, something happened to me. Mupi said, I have a secret that only Ama knew. My womb was cursed, and I was told I could never have a baby. The villagers gasped. They hadn't expected this. A curse. One of them whispered, how terrible. Another said, Modupe continued, this curse has been a burden on me all my life. I tried to find a way to break it, but nothing Worked only Oma knew about it because she was my best friend. I trusted her. With this secret, Oma, still teary-eyed, looked at Modupe with a mix of sadness and anger. The villagers started to understand that there was more to the story than they had initially thought. I never told anyone else because I was ashamed. Modupe said I was scared that no man would ever want to marry me if they knew I couldn't have children, but Oma knew she kept my secret, and I thought she was my true friend. The villagers murmured among themselves. They began to feel a bit of sympathy for Modupe. They realized how difficult it must have been for her to live with such a secret. Modupe continued, as we grew older, Oma started to get jealous of the attention I received from men. She didn't know that all I wanted was a family, a husband and children, but I couldn't have that because of the curse. The village elders nodded, understanding the weight of Modupe's words. They turned to Oma, who was quietly crying. Is this true, Oma? One of the elders asked. Oma nodded slowly. Yes, it's true, she said softly. I knew about Modupe's curse, and I kept it a secret. The villagers were silent, absorbing this new information. They realized that the situation was more complicated than they had thought. Modupe wasn't just a friend who betrayed Oma. She was a woman struggling with a deep and painful secret. Modupe's eyes filled with tears as she spoke. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she said. I just wanted to find happiness, but it always seemed out of reach. I never expected things to turn out this way. The villagers began to see Modupe in a different light. They no longer saw her as the villain, but as someone who had suffered silently for years. The story was far from over, but now they knew the truth about Modupe's secret. The story started a long time ago when Oma and Modupe were still young adults. Modupe was very beautiful, and many men in the village admired her everywhere she went. People noticed her when they went to the river. Hondo men offered to help Modupe carry water in the market. Rich merchants gave her gifts. Oma watched all of this and felt a pang of jealousy. In her heart she loved Modupe as a friend, but she couldn't help feeling envious of all the attention Modupe received. Men noticed Modupe more, and Oma felt left out. One day a very handsome man named Amodu came to the village. He was the most handsome man anyone had ever seen. When Amodu saw Modupe, he was smitten. He wanted to know more about her, and soon they began to spend time together. Modupe fell in love with Amodu, and he loved her too. One beautiful evening, Modupe introduced Amodu to Oma. Oma pretended to be happy for her friend, but inside her jealousy grew. She wished she could have someone like Amodu to love her. She thought about how Modupe had everything: beauty, attention, and now a handsome man. One day Oma couldn't hold her jealousy any longer. She decided to talk to Amodu alone. Amodu, do you know Modupe very well? She asked him. Amodu smiled and said, yes, I love her. Why do you ask? Oma looked at him and said, do you know Modupe can't have a baby? She has a cursed womb. Amodu was shocked. What do you mean? Oma continued. Modupe didn't tell you she cannot have children. She has been cursed since she was born. Amodu's face fell. He didn't know this about Modupe. No, she didn't tell me, he said quietly. Oma saw the sadness in Amu's eyes and felt a strange satisfaction. Maybe she didn't love you enough to tell you, she said. After that day, Amodu started to avoid Modupe. He stopped coming to see her. Modupe didn't understand why. She asked him, Amodu, why have you changed? Why don't you visit me anymore? Amodu looked at her sadly. I can't continue this relationship. Modupe, I'm sorry, he said, and walked away, not telling her exactly why. Modupe was heartbroken. She didn't know why Amodu had left her. She cried and felt very sad. Oma, pretending to be a good friend, consult her. Don't worry, Mop, you are beautiful. Another man will come for you. She said hiding the truth about what she had done. Oma felt guilty, but also relieved. She thought she had solved her problem, but she didn't. Realized that her actions would only cause more pain and trouble in the future. The seeds of jealousy and betrayal had been planted, and they would grow into even bigger problems as time went on. One sunny day, a rich merchant named Inosi came to the village. He was very young and handsome, and he often visited the village to buy and sell goods. This day he saw Modupe for the first time and was instantly captivated by her beauty. Inosi approached Modupe. "An ama in the market. Hello, what is your name?" Inosi asked, looking at Modupe. Modupe smiled shyly and said, "My name is Modupe." Ino's eyes sparkled. "You are very beautiful, Modupe. I would like to get to know you better." Oma watched this with a heavy heart. She saw how Inosi and Modupe talked, laughed, and enjoyed each other's company. Inosi started bringing gifts for Mop every time he visited the market. Mop began to fall in love with Inosi, and he seemed to love her too. Oma's jealousy grew again. She thought, why does Modupe get all the handsome and rich men? What about me? She couldn't stand seeing Modupe happy, so she decided to ruin Modupe's chance at happiness once more. One mark day, Oma waited until Inosi was about to leave the village. She ran up to him and said, "Inosi, I need to talk to you. It's about Modupe." Inosi looked curious. "What is it, Oma?" Oma took a deep breath and said, "Did you know that Modupe can't have children? She has a cursed womb. She never told you, did she?" Inosi was shocked and said, "No, she didn't tell me that." "Are you sure?" Oma nodded. "Yes, it's true. She cannot have babies. If you want children in your future, you should know this." Inosi looked heartbroken. He thanked Oma and left the next time Inosi came to the market, he didn't bring any gift for Modupe. He avoided her and looked very sad. Modupe noticed that change and approached Inos. "See, Inos, see, why are you avoiding me?" she asked, tears in her eyes. Inosi sighed and said, "Modupe, I have heard something that makes me very sad. I cannot be with you anymore. I'm sorry." Modupe's heart broke into pieces. She cried and didn't understand why this was happening again. She went home and cried even more. Oma, pretending to be a good friend, sat by her side, comforting her. "Don't worry, Modupe, you are beautiful and kind. Another man will come for you," Oma said, hiding the satisfaction she felt inside. Modupe felt lost and alone. She didn't know why this kept happening to her. She thought, maybe I am cursed forever. Will I ever find happiness? The villagers whispered about Modupe and Inosi, wondering why Inosi had left her. Oma felt a bit guilty, but she also felt relieved that she had once again taken away the attention from Modupe. She didn't realize that her actions were causing more pain and sorrow, not just for Modupe but for herself as well. After Inosi left, Modupe was heartbroken. She felt like she would never find happiness. Oma saw her friend's sadness and Pia, pretending to be helpful, came up with a new plan. She suggested they visit a powerful old woman who lived in a nearby village. This old woman was known for her wisdom and her ability to solve difficult problems. "Modupe, I have heard about a powerful old woman who can help you," Oma said. "She lives in the nearby village. Maybe she can lift the curse from your womb." Modupe hesitated at first. "We have tried so many things, Oma. What if this doesn't work?" Ida, she asked, feeling hopeless. "But this woman is different," Oma insisted. "She is very powerful. We must try. What do we have to lose?" Finally, Modupe agreed. The next morning they set off to find the old woman. After a long walk, they reached a small hut at the edge of the nearby village. The old woman, with grey hair and wise eyes, welcomed them. "What brings you here, my children?" "Children?" the old woman asked, her voice calm and soothing. Modupe explained her situation. "I have a cursed whom I cannot have children, and it has brought me much sorrow. Can you help me? The old woman listened carefully. She closed her eyes and thought deeply. After a while she spoke. There is a way to lift the curse, she said, but it is not easy. You must marry the prince of your village. He is the only one who has the power to break the curse. Modupe and Oma was surprised. The prince Modupe asked, how can I make the prince marry me? He doesn't even know I exist. The old woman smiled. You are very beautiful, Modupe. The prince will notice you if you make an effort. You must go to the palace every day. Greet him politely and show him your kind heart. The prince has a good heart too. He will see the goodness in you. Modupe felt a glimmer of hope. Thank you, wise woman. I will do as you say. Oma, however, felt a pang of jealousy again. She thought if Modupe marries the prince, she will become even more important and beautiful. I must find a way to stop this. She blamed herself for suggesting a solution. If I knew this is what the old woman would suggest, I wouldn't have told Modupe to come seek a solution from her. She thought to herself. The old woman gave them some herbs and instructions for Modupe to follow. These herbs will help purify your body and soul. Use them as I have told you, and remember to stay hopeful and kind. Modupe thanked the old woman and returned to her village with Ama. She felt a new sense of purpose and decided to follow the old woman's advice. Every morning Modupe and Ama went to the palace. Modupe greeted the prince politely and tried to catch his attention. Ama watched closely, thinking of ways to sabotage Modupe's efforts, but Modupe stayed hopeful, determined to lift the curse and find happiness. As days passed, the prince began to notice Modupe. Her kindness and beauty caught his eye. Just as the old woman had predicted, Modupe felt a small flicker of joy in her heart. Perhaps, just perhaps, her life was about to change for the better. Prince Adw was a handsome and kind-hearted young man. He often spent his days walking around the palace grounds, talking to the villagers and